think some of the Afghans were tracked down that worked with us, and I think some of them were killed, and I'm pretty certain some of them in pretty brutal ways. Some were managed to escape through various means. Others have just laid low and keeping their heads down.
Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. As you just heard, former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Mark Milley testified yesterday before the House Foreign Affairs Committee about the withdrawal from Afghanistan, which he has previously called a strategic failure, which left him with lots of regrets. Though, of course, what he regrets is not leaving a small force behind in Afghanistan, when what he really should be apologizing for is slow walking the withdrawal, because it seemed the Pentagon really thought Biden would change his mind at the last minute. And then when it became too late for that, you had our guys surrounded by the Taliban and released ISIS-K fighters, making the situation far more dangerous and chaotic than it needed to be. And so we ended up bringing over like 100,000 people from Afghanistan, many of them unvetted, while our real allies were left behind to die, as we heard. But like all government officials these days, Milley only failed upward from focusing more on understanding white rage than on actual military tactics. As The Intercept is now reporting, quote, "Since retiring from the military last year, former chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Army General Mark Milley, has become a senior advisor to J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, joined the faculties of Princeton and Georgetown, and embraced the lucrative paid speaking circuit. From military pay of $204,000 a year, Milley is sure to skyrocket to compensation in the millions, especially because he is represented by the same high-powered speaker's agency as Hillary Clinton, who faced criticism in 2016 for her paid speeches to investment bank Goldman Sachs. Called cashing in by military officers transitioning from capped government salaries to defense industry, private consulting for global risk management, or work with venture capital brings in lavish paydays. For retired generals, the invasion is swift. The recently retired Chief of Space Operations for the Space Force, General John W.J. Raymond, for example, has joined the board of directors for aerospace companies Impulse Space and Axiom Space, as well as becoming senior managing director for investment firm Cerberus Capital Management. General James C. McConville, who served as Chief of Staff of the Army before retiring last year, has joined the board of directors of drone manufacturer Edge Autonomy and aerospace investment firm AE Industrial Partners as an operating partner, end quote. Too much money is invading how our military operates, and that leaves us with devastating consequences. And now this week marks yet another strategic failure to which so many patriotic young men and women gave their lives or limbs or even peace of mind for. And that is the 21st anniversary of the Iraq War, which began March 19, 2003, with U.S.-led coalition forces exploding into Baghdad as President George W. Bush addressed the nation back home. While the U.S. may have ended its combat mission part in that war under Obama, we still have troops on the ground in Iraq as we speak. Is that a wise decision? Joining us now to discuss is Marine Corps and Army National Guard veteran John Burns, a senior advisor to Concerned Veterans for America. John, thanks for being here tonight.
Always great to be on, Kara. Thanks for having me.
Great. So as we've discussed here with you before, you've been deployed to Iraq, also to Afghanistan, but we're focusing on Iraq right now. So looking back these 21 years later, what are some of your reflections about that war?
Well, you know, the Iraq war is now old enough to buy beer legally, which is just incredible. It was 21 years ago on March 20th that I was reporting into my armory in Manhattan to go for a quick training mission and then start guarding the subways, because during the shock and awe phase, there was a fear that Saddam Hussein would set terrorists loose in America. Of course, he had no such power to do that. It's been a couple of months back in my civilian life. And then that fall, in the fall of 2003, I found myself once again training, this time to go overseas. And this week, on the night of St. Patrick's Day and the next morning, I found myself involved in my first firefight in Iraq, March 17th into March 18th. I cannot believe that American troops are still under fire there, are still at risk there. The 2002, as well as the 2001 authorizations for use of military force are still on the books. And it's just incredible that we can't pull these AUMFs off the books, that president after president continues to risk American lives in Iraq for absolutely no strategic reason or national interest